Hello and welcome to this week's episode of My CP Does Not Define Me, where we focus less on the this and more on the ability of what we can do. Join us every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, live on www.letgoradio.net and on Facebook Live, where I always say, if you can't be good, be bad, but be good at it. Hello, everybody. It is that time again. It is Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. It is a time for episode 62 for the second time in a row now. My CP does not define me because last week I was unable to do episode 62 because I was sick. So we had to transpose things around, sing and dance and do all the great stuff that we have to do in the radio world. And this show, I when I put the flyer out, I was so excited because my CP has now multiplied. Instead of one guest, I've got two. So I'm super happy about that. We're live on letgoradio.net. We're live on Facebook Live. We're live around the world, everywhere. And I am happy to welcome Mr. Brian and Victoria Miniger. I've known these folks for a long time. I had the pleasure of having Brian on my show a couple of weeks ago. Now I get a chance to have them as a couple because it's just so awesome. I can't even put it into words. Miss Tori, how are you? Brian, how are you? Thank you guys for being here today.
Yeah, I'm doing awesome. So good to see you, DJ. And it's been a little while since I've actually seen you in person, but yeah, you're right. We go ways back, and just great to be here.
Yep. DJ, glad you got my better half this time. So we've improved the visual presentation of this podcast.
We now have 790 more. No. I just want to welcome you guys to the show. For our viewers, my opening question is the same to all of my guests as I go through. If you would not mind, Miss Tori, if you would start, or Miss Victoria, as you're known as well. I'm sorry, guys. I call her Tori just because that's who I am. But if you wouldn't mind telling the viewers a little bit about yourself, and then Brian, we'll let the ladies go first, and you can go after, please, if you would.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Well, a little bit about me. Well, I've been married, obviously, to Brian for about, I guess we just celebrated 25 years of marriage, and we have 4 daughters. We just married 2 daughters this summer, kind of back to back, one in May and one here I guess this past weekend. So anyway, so we have 4 daughters that just keep life busy and exciting. And of course, I work with Brian at our business, Bear Creek Outdoor Living, and I operate there as the CEO and integrator. And I'm also a first-time author. So yeah, lots of things happening and going on.
Okay, we're definitely going to get into the author part here in a little bit later in the show. Brian, how about you, sir?
For 25 years, and the personal side you got. Yeah, I'm a builder. I love building stuff, and been building for a long time. Love building and lives, and so taking raw materials together and creating something. And so that's probably, if you only knew one thing about me, that's one of the things that you would figure out pretty quickly. So yeah, and it's good to be back. It was a great fun to be on your show a little while ago, and
well, I want to start off. I guess my first question is, and I want to. This is so great to be able to bring Miss Tori into this. When you guys had the vision with Bear Creek, and being married, to have someone else to share your dream with, to talk with, to go through the hard times with, how did you guys come together and talk about, okay, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I kind of have an idea for, let's continue off of this? Because I know you guys have done a lot together in building this dream or this vision, and like I said, it helps to have someone with you that loves you and wants to support you. Miss Tori, how did you come about, realizing, what this was, and what was it like for you, being a CEO and all of that?
Well, I can tell you, didn't start out as a CEO. Didn't even aspire to do anything like that. When I started Bear Creek, it really was just because I was ready to move out of what I was doing, which was bookkeeping and administration, which I'd done for 20 years. And I was just wanting to move to something different. And so Brian at the time was working for somebody else. And so I started this little side hustle doing construction cleaning because it's what I knew, and the numbers look good. And it's actually just developed over the years. And I think that's what's been so great, being able to work with Brian, and is that as dreams develop, we can both talk through, what that looks like and which way and direction it goes. Because I can tell you, I guess 6 years ago when I started this is not where I thought we'd land up. It's great where we landed up, but it has morphed into what it is today. And most certainly, I think when we pursue the things that we're passionate about and the work we're passionate about, then, titles follow after that. Like I said, I didn't chase any CEO title. It's just where I've landed up. But really my heart is to really pour into people, and Brian and I have that same vision. So that's where it's helpful.
You know Brian quite well, of course. Like you said, you've been married to him for 25 years. Congratulations. And it's to be able to, he said in our last show, he talked about it, and here he just referenced it. He loves building things. He building a team, building people. When did you? I mean, it's always been that way with Brian. He's always been hands-on. As long as I've known him, sometimes hands-on is like, Brian, I can't breathe. But no, not really. But when was it? When did you see like the explosion of Bear Creek? Because you guys are rocking right now. The things that you're doing for the community is incredible. I mean, I follow the website every day. When I say every day, I'm clicking on it, checking on it. It's ever since Brian's show, I've been sharing. I've gotten more emails from Brian, from talking with Brian, and more. How did he do it, and when did he do it? And I'm trying to push those guys your way. I mean, it's just, that's amazing. When did you see this giant explosion?
I think it was progressive, and Brian, you most certainly can jump in here as well. Our focus, I think that it's important where you focus. So sometimes when we try to focus on growth and we try to focus on growing something, we can try so hard to grow something that we don't grow anything. And so if, by turning our vision to what mattered to us in this business, which was caring for people well. The bottom line is that while we want to build great things, we really want to take care of people well, but not just our clients, in particular our staff and our employees. And so by approaching it that way, people want to be a part of that. And so I think part of the vision that was for this company was that Brian has worked for at times, and so have I, for employers that have cared for us well as a family and as people. And we realized how powerful that was. And so we just started doing what was in our heart to do, which was to care for people well. And then as more business came, we were able to hire more people. And we just had this idea that we wanted to be able to hire people into a life-giving environment. And so we just try to work really hard at doing that piece well. And as we care for people well, then the work has followed. I think when we invest in people first, the revenue kind of takes care of itself, if that makes sense. The growth starts taking care of itself. But I don't know, Brian, what say to that, where he saw that explosion?
All right, come on in, big man. What you got for me?
Implication, the question is that there was one moment, and so I can't identify one moment because you're in there and you're grinding, you're working, it's hard work when you do hard work, and it's getting up and doing things you don't want to do. And so I think companies really are when you look backwards, and you look at like, oh my word, look at what's transpired. In terms of like, wow, maybe we're doing more than we thought we were.
Brian, we're losing your audio there, Brian. I don't know, you're fading in and out. I don't know if it's maybe the headphones or what's going on, but you're fading in and out.
Probably the headphones, maybe.
Yep. There you go.
Try your headphones, Brian.
Mm, testing 1, 2, 3. Little bit. I can hear you now. I couldn't hear you before at all.
How's that?
There we go. Yep.
Okay. So what I was saying is a lot of times you're just grinding day in and day out. You're doing hard work. And so it's hard to see. Sometimes the biggest epiphanies are when you look backwards and you see like, oh my word, look how far we've come. One of the pivotal moments for us, I think, was when we won the Small Business Excellence Award from the local Chamber of Commerce. And part of why that was significant was because we had a business that failed in this community back in the Great Recession. And when that happened, we let a lot of people down and it damaged relationships. And so for me, it in some ways felt like I'd never be thought of positively in this community again. And so then, 10, 11 years later to see this same business community recognize us and the work that we were doing, and in a pretty young company at the time. I mean, I think we were essentially 3 years old when we won that award, or for the year we won that award. And so yeah, maybe that's the closest thing to an epiphany. But I think a lot of times, you're grinding and you don't necessarily see that big breakthrough when you're in the middle of it.
I've known you guys for a while, and the one thing that I can say about both of you is you've always had a passion for people, whether it's been in the church ministry, whether it's been raising your daughters, whether it's been being married to each other, whether it's cell group, life group. You guys care about what you do and how you present yourself. And I think, I have seen God work in your lives, and it's, I may be in Portsmouth now. Trust me, Waynesboro's still an option. Brian and I talked about that, but it's one of those things to see you guys succeed. You guys deserve it. I mean, it is to create jobs for people and to allow them to succeed when they see success from what you do, but also the hands-on being able to teach them different things and show them that they can succeed, builds confidence and shows them, yes, we can succeed. And then in turn, they can take that and roll with it. See what I did there? And actually go from point to point and say, have you tried this? Because construction is big. I mean, you've got building and sanding and welding and this and that. And there's so many different, but the little things that Brian talked about, you start, okay, let's dig a hole. Well, I've never dig a hole before. All right, this is a hole digger. Place this here, pull this open, pick it up, pull it out. And it's like, really? And then you do it and you're like, wow, I just did that. I could see from like being on the ship, you start at the mud packer and then you go up and then you go up and then you go up. But every job has a significant meaning. And it's that makes me go, man, this is the real deal. Because you've got jobs that people are going to every day and they're like, oh, I got to get up and go to work and do it again. And they're like, that's what amazes me about this. This is a chance to do almost anything, and it's limitless because it always continues to help people. And is that, did you guys have that forefront in this? Did you guys see that the entire time? Does that make sense? Whoever wants to start on that.
I don't know if we saw it the entire, I think it's an evolving thing, kind of like Brian said, as we're in business longer and we're working with people more, we learn more and more about how to work with people well and help them achieve, what their dreams and desires are. And we also understand that they may not want to be in construction for the rest of their lives. They may come into us and be with us just a few years and realize they really have a passion for something else. But if we can be a part of that journey and they learn something along the way, then, we're excited for them. But I think the other thing for Brian and I, it's not about just learning skill. We can continue to teach skill every day. what we want to see people do is grow personally, and challenge them to do that. I truly believe that personal growth precedes professional growth, that if you truly want to be able to advance professionally, you have to grow personally. And that's not just advancement. That's not just promotion or getting a bigger paycheck. That is doing the hard work of whatever you need to do. Like, so for me, and I know we'll talk about this later, I went through a season of severe clinical depression. And when I came out of that was when this business started. But part of my hard work has been spending a lot of time in personal counseling, because that's what I needed to do for me to grow and to move forward and to work through all the stuff that I just needed to deal with. Now, that may not be the case for everybody, but most certainly, we want to see people grow first personally, because we know that when they do and really get a hold of that then they can really lean into the things that they're passionate about and learn those skills and see things for their life. And that's what we want for them.
Brian, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's important for people to understand, when we're building people, we're giving them opportunity, but like Victoria's saying, personal growth precedes professional growth. And kind of the way I see that is, like, if you want more responsibility, if you want more success, you got to be better. Like, that's just the way it is. And, it's nobody's holding you back in this world, really. I mean, somebody might be, but that only happens for a period of time. If you're really good, sooner or later, somebody's going to come along and recognize that you're really good and give you that opportunity. So at the end of the day, most of what holds us back is what's inside of us. It's our inabilities to change. If we want to, for me right now, for example, I know that for me to go to the next level, I've got to be physically stronger. And so I'm working with a nutritionist to improve my physical health, because I've got to be able to handle more load mentally and emotionally every single day for me to get better. And so it starts with our skills, our abilities, our emotional intelligence, our leadership, and all of those things are internal. And I think so many times we look external and we think, well, if somebody would just promote me or give me that position, then I could move forward. But moving forward starts inside, and we just we got to be better if we want more opportunity.
I look at this and what you just said, and one of the things that I want to cover on this, especially, when I was growing up, in my younger years in Waynesboro, and I was mentored by Brian for a long time. I was in Waynesboro for 10 years. And of those 10 years, whether I liked it or not, Brian was always mentoring, always wanting to see me succeed, always wanting me to go to that next level. And I thought I was coachable in my younger years. I was, to a point. But when I got stubborn and when I realized, look, I'm stopping right here and you're not moving. I like how he said it's on the inside. It starts with you. It has to be coachable. You have to be able to move. And a lot of the problem is not the people on the outside or the people that Brian was talking about. No one's holding you back. Our biggest enemy most of the time is ourselves. And we put obstacles in front of ourselves. And I've said many times on this show, if you want something done, nobody's going to hand it to you. Nobody's going to give it to you. You got to get behind the wheel, put the key in the ignition, start the car, and drive. And that's what you got to go for it. And I've had to learn that. But talking about this right here, Miss Tori mentioned it. And this show is going to get real right now, because moving into this, and I want to say this, when you see somebody that is, okay, how can I say this? Not coachable, but when they're having trouble seeing that you're trying to coach them, and it's stubbornness, and it's, I don't want to move, and it's, you can't make me move. in my aspect of where it was, what do you do to show them, hey, look, I'm not trying to hurt you. This is what I'd like to see, but you got to be the one to do it. How do you coach them? Where does it come into play on both roles?
Well, I think for me, that what comes to mind is, they have to make a choice, and it's got to be their choice, and so, I only know how to coach one way, and that's the way that I've walked through and I've grown personally or whatever. And so I'm not going to approach it from any other angle. And so I may draw a line and say, if you want to grow further, I really believe you have to take these steps. And so there's a trust factor there, if they're ready to trust that or not. And then if they're not, the next step is you just be willing to let them go until they are, and people have to arrive to that place on their own. You can't push them across the finish line or drag them across the finish line as much as you'd like to.
Right.
And sometimes that's really hard when you're investing in people, but they've got to come to that place as well. And sometimes they do, and sometimes, sometimes they don't. But yeah, I mean, and I think people get frustrated at times because they want to grow personally or professionally or whatever at a really fast rate, and they have this timeline in their head, and it's got to be in this X amount of time. And the reality is everybody moves along that at different paces and different ways. And just because your friend down the road has really been able to get somewhere faster doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you or anything. It just means that your timeline's a little different. And so when we can lean into that discomfort, so often we don't want to lean into the discomfort of growing, because growing is not easy. And so if people are willing to lean into the discomfort with me, then I can help lead them. But if they're not, then it's okay to just let them go for a little while until either they're ready or whatever. So,
Brian?
Yeah, I think even we recognize too that while we're not the right people to help everyone either. Like personalities click and sometimes personalities don't click, and that's okay. What somebody needs, maybe what we've got to offer, maybe it's not. And ultimately we know God is responsible for people's lives. He's the Savior. Jesus is the Savior. I am not. And so we do try to hold people open-handed, and if they feel like they can learn from what we can mentor, then great. But we're not trying to force that in on anybody. And it does take time. Yeah, we've grown a lot in a 5-year-old company, but I've been working and learning the skills that it's taking to lead this company today if I go back to my first job, I was 11 or 12. And so giving my age away, that's 33 years that I've been learning the skills it takes for me to do the job that I do today, and so it's not an overnight success. There's been failures and things in between. And so, yeah, growth takes time. I don't think there's any shortcuts.
It's a constant growing process. You're constantly getting that soil, that nutrients, that water, everything that you need to grow. And it's
here's how I explain it. So we have some farmland, and there are trees that have grown in certain areas, and we've had to clean them up. And there's these trees that we call weed trees, and they grow up really fast, and so fast so you just can't believe how fast they're growing. And from the outside, they look like an oak tree or a maple tree, but you go to cut through them, and they're hollow inside. They've rotted out from the inside. Wow. And the first storm blows them over. And so, yeah, they can grow really fast, but they ain't gonna last, and so how you grow the tree matters, and if you want something that's going to last, then you got to take the time to grow it well. And if you want to grow up really fast, that's fine, but it might be rotten in the center and look really good on the outside.
That's and that's kind of like life. You've got people that are like that. And you talk about seeing something and relating to it. I can remember before we move into this next segment, I always wanted the growth part. Hearing this, I'm like, all right, let me just go back a little bit, because I'm looking. I always now evaluate myself every day. With every day that passes, it's not a self-evaluation test, but I take a look at my day, I take a look at my week, I take a look at my month, and I evaluate what is going on with me. Where am I at, and where are the goals that I want to get to? That tree simile, to go through that metaphor and go, am I hollow on the inside? Am I, you hear something and it catches you and you're like, dang, do I need to reevaluate some stuff? Am I growing too quick and not, is the nourishment there on the inside? I love that. So that is, and I know a lot of people like that. So that right there is a reference. Think about what he's saying. Make sure that it's passion all the way in. Don't just look to be the center of attention. I was there. I had to be the center of the room. I was there. I went through that crap. I was male chauvinistic, and I'm not afraid to admit it because I had to grow in that and realize where I was at the time. At the time, I thought I was where I was supposed to be. I thought I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, but God's plan for you is not necessarily what you see at that time. That conscious growth that you're going through is going to be hard. You may lean a little bit. You may have to brace yourself up. You may have to have those things, which is why I want to move into this next segment. Now, Miss Victoria up here is a mom. She's a CEO, and she is a writer. Daring to Fight, I believe it is the name of your book, correct? I want to make sure I got that right.
Yep, that's right. No, it's Daring to Fight, when grit, grace, and faith take depression head on. So that's kind of the longer title.
I always, when I first read, I always called it Stay in the Fight. And I would not want to do that because I've read most of it and I couldn't put it down. I'm going to tell you, I'm not a reader. I don't read a lot of books. When I got Miss Tori's book, I'm like, okay, all right, I'm going to be in my room for a while. Nobody say anything. I've never read a book like that because to me, depression is not talked about a lot because it's unseen. It's seen, but it's unseen. And you can walk around and carry it in the daytime, in the nighttime, and it's a constant until you learn to deal with it. And first of all, I want to get your thoughts on how the book came about. You talked about a little bit about your battle. You went through it and then the business started. So can you just share how that came about, a little bit of what you would like to share about, how the book came about and what you were dealing with, and we can kind of go from there?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, like you said, I did. I went through probably a good long 1-year stretch of really battling clinical depression. And it was a much longer stretch than that, but the worst of it was probably a year or so. But it really spanned a couple of years. But as I was coming kind of out of the tail end of that, I was always looking for resources and things to just help me in my own journey because, again, self-growth, I knew that if I was going to get out of this place, I needed to find some practical resources. And I was struggling to kind of do that. I had read all the psychology books because I have a degree in psychology and all of that. So I'd read all the clinical side of things, being a woman of faith. I had read a number of books around the faith side of that. You need both of those things, right? So at the time, I had started leading depression support groups out at church and was just struggling to find the curriculum that would fit the group that we had. And I kept telling parts of my story till finally somebody's like, would you please just write that down? You just need to write that down. We need you to get that to us in written form. And so I decided to try to write a curriculum. And so I started there and realized there was just too much story. There was just too much stuff to put in just a simple curriculum book. And so I had initially self-published it just for this class, just so I could have something to hand to the folks that were coming to this support group. And out of that, I had some good friends that just encouraged me and just said, look, you really need to get that thing published, put it down and stuff. And so was able to submit that to a publisher with Morgan James Publishing and fast forward, here we are. But part of the reason I wrote the book was not so much to tell my story, though I do tell parts of my story in that, but I really wanted to give some practical guidance for how I walk through it. Doesn't mean it's right for everybody or every single instance is right for, out of that book is for everybody, but to show that, there definitely is a way out, but it takes a lot of hard work. And so in telling my story, I wanted to tell just enough to allow other people to find their own story in it, because there are so many that do battle. It is such a complex thing. Depression is just not a cookie cutter, fit in a box kind of thing. It affects people differently and in different ways. And so yet to know that, one, they're not alone, and that they have an advocate in their corner, and someone who on the outside, you look at me and look at my life and go, oh my goodness, how would she ever have struggled with that? But it affects every race, every age, every men, women, children, teens, to a great level, even in particular as we've come out of the pandemic and everything and stuff. And so my biggest hope is that it would be a beacon of hope to folks that are just in that place right now, and to know that they're not alone.
When you were writing the curriculum, when you were trying to get the handout done for the class that you were teaching, were you going through it then?
Going through depression at that point?
Mm-hmm.
No, so I was on the other side of it by that point. So I'd spent probably, like I said, a year of just really in a deep, dark place. And then I spent about 2 or 3 more years just working through the process of moving out of that season, and working with a counselor, working with my doctor. And to me, approaching depression has to be a holistic thing. It can't, it's not just one thing,
Right.
throw a Band-Aid on it, whatever. It's not that simple.
You
And so it
can't
was
do-
very much, but by the time I got to that curriculum, right, by the time I got to that point, I was in a much healthier place. And most certainly, just having battled that, I had to be very aware that I can end back up in that place. And so I'm very careful with my own mental health and stuff from, now.
So kind of going off that, and I'll get to Brian here in just a second, because one of the biggest problems that I've seen for any, like you said, it affects all ages, children, teens, men, women, grandparents, parents. The hardest part is the realization that you are battling it, that it is happening to you.
Yeah.
What, if you don't mind sharing it, what got you to the point of, I've got to get this under control? What was the realization for you that you were battling depression, that it was significant enough that you needed counseling, that you needed to get some help, that you needed to battle through it and say, okay, enough is enough? For the people out there that are dealing with it right now and struggling and say, no, it's not depression, I'm not depressed, I'm fine. What was your realization point? What was it for you?
Yeah, and I tell a little bit about this in the book, and it was a little bit of a long process. It probably, probably took me a year or two to realize. And like you said, you would think that that you would know, especially for one who has studied mental health and behavior and all that all these years and stuff. But it's hard to recognize in yourself. But for me, I just hit a point where I was just so overwhelmed. My life had gotten so overwhelming with so many things I was trying to do and carry. And I just got to a point where I wasn't sure I wanted to live anymore. And that's a scary point. I knew that I wanted to, remain here for my children and all, but I just felt like such a failure. And I just was struggling to get through a day. I just wanted to sleep. And I would continue through my day, but I just didn't have energy. And I was just really struggling. Brian probably has a better view of that for me. But it really came to a head one day where I was actually painting a house. I tell this story in the book, but I was painting a house because we were, at the time, a pastoral couple, and we were also, Brian was bivocational, and so we would take on odd jobs, and I was hoping to paint this house. And as I was painting this house, it just hit me that if I didn't drop everything right then and there, as far as all the responsibilities on my plate, I just knew I may not be in a really good place next year. And it scared me enough to say, you know what? No matter what, for once, I'm going to take care of me, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get out of this place. I just can't do it anymore. And so it was a phone call to Brian, and we had been having kind of these conversations that I was feeling very overwhelmed and too much. And he was kind of seeing it. And when I just called him and I said, I'm done, I can't do this anymore. That was kind of the realization point. And when I just literally dropped everything that was on my plate and just made a choice to start taking care of myself.
So one question, and then I want to get to Brian. Was that a freeing moment for you to drop everything on your plate and to realize, I need to take care of me? Because I think that is the biggest point that everyone needs to come to in their lives. Self-care is so important. Was that freeing for you?
It was, and yet it was also very scary. It takes a lot of courage to be able to say, I can't anymore, and I need to take care of me. And see, I'm a helper by nature. I want to take care of people. And so it was very hard for me to say, I can't take care of people right now. And I can't take care of all these things that I promised. And so while it did bring a huge sense of relief, it was also very scary because I was heading into what felt like uncharted waters. I honestly didn't know how Brian would react.
Right.
I was convinced in my head that he was going to leave, that he was going to walk out and leave, because I just wasn't a great wife. I didn't feel like a great wife anymore, or a great pastor's wife, and all those things that were just lies, actually, from the enemy and stuff. And so it was a little bit of a mixed bag there at that moment.
So let's get into Brian here just a minute, because I'm looking and I'm watching. For you, Brian, what was it like seeing Tori go through this, and what was the realization? Was there a realization for you of, wow, she does need to drop everything and take care of herself? Was there a moment for you? And you did stay. Can you talk about the support for her and just what you saw, and a little bit from your side of what you felt, saw, and reacted, those type of things?
Yeah, I mean, it was really difficult and humbling to see someone you care about that much. The best word I know to say is crumble. And certainly I've been through some difficult things in life. We mentioned earlier about the business that we lost back in 2009, and that was a very humbling experience. But in some ways, I feel like God used what happened in our family with Victoria probably to mold and shape me as much as anything, because I'm an aggressive personality. I'm going after it, that type of thing, and that can be really hard on the people around me. And I had to face head on that my lack of care was a key component to what happened to Victoria. And DJ, you like me knew Victoria 15 years ago, and so to see an amazing dynamic person who now can't get out of bed and can't function and can't do basic care of themselves was pretty hard to watch. And I couldn't fix it. Like, on top of that, I could not fix it. There was no amount of like, you should do this, or pushing, or whatever. It was almost as traumatic. I don't want to compare necessarily, but if she'd been in a massive accident and rendered helpless in the hospital, it would have been kind of a similar result, because all I could do was care for her. I couldn't expect anything from her. I couldn't ask anything from her. And so in some ways, I really feel like, you asked earlier, like, why do we care for people? Well, God taught me to care for people during that season of caring for Victoria, and while I think I cared for people before, I also think I cared for people in a lot of ways for what I could get out of the relationship or from them. And so learning to just care for people, because that's what God's called us to do, because they're a human being created in the image of God, just like I am, and need God's grace just as much as I do. That's a very different place to come to loving and caring somebody from. And so God really shaped my heart in a lot of ways by walking through this season. And so I think both of us today, walk very differently because of what God did in our lives through this season.
To hear you and see that's, I just had a DJ moment, and I don't mean, when you said I couldn't fix it, that's I'm thinking, and I'm going, I can't.
I'm a builder. I can fix anything.
Do anything, like,
and I couldn't fix that.
because I'll be honest, my wife's been through that, and we're in the middle of a lot of change. A lot of people don't know that, because I haven't shared it, because that's not something I'm going to share on Facebook or on the radio. But when you see someone battling depression and you can't fix it, that is the wrench to the head and the hammer to the face, and you're just, what do I have to do? And you got to come to a realization. There's nothing you can do but care. You've got, because it is your battle, but it's not, because the person is going through it, not you. And to really care for them, to be there every, ooh, hey, that, I mean, did you, okay, so there was something, I gotta go to it. I wasn't, but there was, Miss Victoria said, I thought he was going to walk out and leave because I just wasn't a good wife anymore. I can't even. Woo, how did you? What did you, when you heard that? How did that make you feel? Like, what made you stay, and how did you say, look, I'm not going to walk out on you? What was that? Where was that to make her? I mean, to reassure her so that she knew, to where that was something.
I mean, we've talked about that, and I may step on some toes here is where I'm going to go.
Uh-oh.
But me not walking out had nothing to do with Victoria. Me not walking out had to do with my Savior. And my Bible says that I am to love my wife the way Jesus Christ loved me and the church, and he gave his life up for me. And that means I am to love and care for my wife, whether she never does a thing for me again, never loves me back, she spits in my face, she hates me, she sins, whatever. That's how we treat Jesus. And Jesus has been so gracious and grateful to me, and loved me in spite of who I am. And I made that commitment before God and before witnesses to my wife. And so, that's why I didn't leave. And leaving isn't. It would have been a slap in the face, and it would have been a nail in the cross of my Savior, and I wasn't willing to do that.
Did y'all just hear that? Now I'm being real here, guys. I've done 62 of these, and I told you this show was gonna get real. That's what I'm talking about. That's a man, and that's not a man answer. And if you think about it, it's for better or worse. That doesn't mean we're gonna need another hour on this show.
Look, I'm not saying you got to agree with me, but I know. Look, there's people that give a lot of explanations for leaving their spouses, and it usually is self-centered. I'll just be honest, and we're called to stay and to love because of what Jesus did, not because of what our spouses do. Our spouses are imperfect people. I'm an imperfect person. Victoria doesn't stay with me because I'm amazing and wonderful. Last night, quite honestly, I was pretty grumpy. I was at the end of my rope, and she needed my help with something, and I just couldn't do it. And I just wasn't very nice. I tried to be, but I just said, I can't do this. I got to go to bed. I can't think about this or process it. And if her dependency is in me, I'm gonna let her down. So our dependency is in the cross. It's in Jesus.
Hearing both of you two speak, I can't say much. I really can't, because, to be honest, this is a learning experience for a lot of people. Okay, and this is the reason, the real stuff, not the shady. Oh, our lives are great. We just won the lottery. We got a new house. This is the real stuff. Okay, to keep it clean. You get to it. This is the battle. When you're down and out, and you stay because you're, I'm gonna be honest, obligated to stay because you made that commitment. That's a word. There's a couple words in there that Brian dropped, and I'm like, ooh, you better. because it makes you look at yourself. And I, man, this is so awesome to hear this between the two of you. This is why I wanted both of you on the show at the same time, because the perspective is different, but it's the same, because it's I'm not gonna leave. It had nothing to do with Victoria. I wasn't expecting that.
And DJ, it's not even an obligation. Freely we have received, freely give. My Savior did not walk out on me. He didn't walk out on me. He went to that cross, and so, I've received a gift, and we give, and so, yeah, maybe some people would view it as an obligation. I don't view it as an obligation.
When I say that, I mean as the promise.
I have been so abundantly blessed and given to. How can I not do the same for others?
So going back now, when did you realize, Miss Tori, okay, that's one thing I don't have to worry about. Brian's not going to walk away. Because that's a big hurdle right there, man. You're already dealing with enough, I'm not going to censor again, but stuff to go through. And it's like, okay, he's not going to leave. There's not much he can do but care. Did that help? Was that once you realize, and when did you realize, like you said, I guess y'all had that conversation?
Yeah, and I mean, most certainly when I called him that day, and he was on a job site in Charlottesville, so he was like 45 minutes away from where we were at, and when I first told him that I was all done, he thought I was done painting a house. I'm like, no, you don't get this, and I explained, and I just said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm dropping all of it, and gave him that choice, because again, in my head, I was just for sure he was going to walk out, but I wanted to give him that free choice. I had to get to that place where I was willing to say that and let him go. And when I just said, if you don't want to be married anymore, I get it. I get it. And that's fine. And, you're welcome to leave if you want to. And all he said to me is, babe, I'm coming home. That's all he said. And he said, I'll be right there. And he hung up and he left the job site and he came right home. And from that time, I spent probably those first 3 months laying on the couch, and he got our kids on the bus. He packed their lunches. He helped them with homework. He took over all the stuff that I normally did. He did laundry. He did dishes without complaint. And he would just check on me. And I remember quite vividly laying on that couch and hearing him moving around our house. And I can tell you, DJ, that I've always felt loved by my husband, but I have never felt the depth of that kind of love when he just simply stopped and cared for me and didn't ask anything of me. And because of that, I felt secure enough to say, okay, and he didn't, and see, like you said, he's a strong personality. So I was expecting, okay, now you got to go do this and this and this. And he didn't push me. He didn't push me to do anything, doctors, whatever. He waited till I was at that point to be ready to start fighting for myself, because like he said, he couldn't fix this for me. It's not something you fix. It is something you battle through together. And that would be the other thing is DJ, is that life is a battle. Marriage, you have to fight for it. What I went through, you have to fight to get out. And it is not easy. I will never tell anybody it is. It gets worse before it gets better. It hurts and it's raw and it's deep. But if you're willing to lean into the discomfort of that, and that's where you have to get, then I think you start walking the other side. But yeah, I mean, again, I had, in all of our years, I'd never felt that kind of love from Brian. It definitely grew in leaps and bounds in depth.
And that's from taking over and doing what needed to be done and just checking on you.
Yep. Just being present. And that's the thing. It's like if you have a loved one battling depression, and just so many times our flesh response is either we want to fix it, and so we try to all the things to fix it. The Bible verses, the prayer, just do this, just do that. Not that any of that is wrong, right? But what people need is the presence of healthy people. They just need to know you're there. Not that you have an answer for them, because you probably don't. And so to just be present with people, because the other flesh reaction is we just pull away thinking they need space. No, they don't need space. They need presence. And so when we give the gift of presence, that can be healing in and of itself.
All right, I've got 2 questions left. This hour has gone way too fast. I'm going to have, I would like to have you both again at some point because I want to dig into this depression a little bit more because this is so common around the world and it's bypassed.
Mm-hmm.
Doctors treat it like zombies with medication, and it does help. Medication does help, but there's more to treating depression than just popping pills. There's more to treating depression than that I can handle it by myself. There's counseling, there's love, there's acceptance, there's you can't fix it. There is presence, like you said. This right here spins a whole new piece. And I want to ask you, you said you laid on the couch for 3 months, right? About you said it was about 3 months. How did you, in that 3 months, what did you do to get to the point where you were saying, okay, now I can start fighting? Was it just laying on the couch and battling in your head? Was it breathing? Was it a combination? Was it praying? I know there was that in there too. What was it?
Yeah, great question. So, again, yeah, it was a lot of laying on the couch and just talking in my head and just having conversation with God. And I can tell you, DJ, it wasn't a nice conversation. It was angry conversation, but we got a big God and he can handle that kind of conversation and he can handle our anger and our frustrations and our emotions. And it was just this, God, when are you going to come and fix this? When are you going to just zap me and make it better? When are the people coming? Because I was waiting for somebody to show up and just fix it. I was, in all honesty. And I had this moment of clarity that as I lay there and prayed and prayed and prayed, nobody's coming. That there's no human being that can fix this for me. And the only way through this is me and God. And so what is the first step? And what I heard him tell me, it was just like, you got to get up and go walk. Like literally, you need to get up and you need to move off the couch and you need to go just take a walk. And so I remember yelling to Brian, hey, I'm going to go take a walk. And he tried not to act surprised because I hadn't hardly moved off that couch. And I put on my shoes and I walked around. At the time we lived on about 15 acres and I walked around the field once and I was exhausted. I was so tired. But again, like I said, for me, walking out of depression was a holistic approach. It was doing the first step. And so I started walking and then slowly after that, I'm like, okay, I need to go see a doctor. And so I started doing that. And then, I actually didn't go to counseling for 2 years. It took me a long time until I was ready to trust somebody enough with what all was inside of me. But I did other things. I looked at what I was eating, and it was all gradual. It wasn't all at once. But yeah, it was just a moment of going, okay, God, you and I are getting out of this together, but you're going to have to show me how to do this because I wasn't, again, I was searching for help in all the wrong places. And so that's where I started.
Well, I'm going to give the floor to you guys because I got about 5 minutes left. And the final thought and the final question is this. If you were to address somebody that's dealing with depression right now, I'm going to go with Tori first, as I have throughout the show, because ladies first, and that's what you're supposed to do. But if someone is dealing with it, to that person, what do you say to that person, Miss Tori, if you will? Could you give some maybe closing words as we end the show today?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a little hard because every person is different. Everybody is approaching that differently. But I think what I want, again, always people to know is that they're not alone, that depression can be so isolating. That's what we want to do. We want to run and hide because the body is just kind of in overdrive. And so we want to run and hide. And so, try not to hide and find that safe person that you can talk to. And know that you're not alone in that. And then just start taking the first step. So that first step might be getting off the couch. That might be making a call to your doctor or to a counselor and taking the first step. Don't try to do it all at once. This is not a sprint. It is a marathon. It is something that is going to take time, and take that first step forward, but that there is hope and there is life through depression, after depression, and all. And so I most certainly know it's not easy, but if I can move through it, I believe others can too.
That is great. Thank you for that. Brian, as someone on the outside of it, but also on the inside too. Seeing it from the outside and seeing that different perspective. What do you say to someone that is on the outside going, what can I do? What can I do? How can I, you know, what do you say to them? Because I know you went through that. What would your final words be? Final thoughts be?
Get Victoria's book and read it. But yeah, there's a shameless plug. But no, in all seriousness, you know, Victoria put the effort into sharing this, and we've put the effort into as a family and couple getting this out there, because we do believe that there's people that just need to know they're not alone, and that someone else has gone through this too. And I think part of what Victoria learned is that, you know, as hard as it is when you're in depression, you've got to take some ownership of and some responsibility for your healing. And I can't necessarily tell somebody that, because they look at me and say, well, what do you know? But Victoria can, because she's been there. And so that's why it's called Daring to Fight, because that's the choice that everybody who's facing this has. It's like, are you going to fight? Or are you going to remain a victim? Are you going to sit? Are you going to wait for somebody else to fix it for you? You know, and so I do think it's a unique message. And I think there's a lot of practical help in there. And so yeah, so my number one advice is go get the book. And if you really need one and you can't afford it, message us and we'll make sure you get one in your hands.
Well, I'm not going to end the show today. I'm not going to do that. And you know what? I'm going to go a minute over, because this needs to be done. Would you share where we can get the book and how we can get it? And please let us know how to get Daring to Fight. Guys, I've got a copy of it. Please go get this book. Please go get this book.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can find it over on Amazon, or you can find it Barnes & Noble, any of the major retailers online. You can find it. You can also find it over on my website, victoriaminiger.com. There's links there to all those places wherever you'd like to pick it up. And most certainly, like Brian said, if finances are an issue and you really want this book and need this book, you can send me a message straight off my website, and I'll get that, and I'll make sure you get a copy in your hands as well and stuff. And so again, I just want that message to get out there. And if it helps somebody, again, that is what I feel like I'm called to do, and helping folks. So that's where you can find it.
Brian, if you'll, when we get off the show today, if you'll, I can drop that in there too, or if you'll drop it in there as well. Also, Miss Victoria, if you'll put your site in the, I can't comment on while I'm on Facebook right now. I don't know why StreamYard doesn't let me do that, but it is what it is. I want to thank you guys for doing this. I would love to have you back for a part 3. Stay with me as we end, because I need to talk to you for about 60 seconds after we get off the air. Guys, thank y'all so much. I know I did not address a lot of the comments that came in, but to be honest, this right here has been a need for a long time, and there's so many things that people deal with that they hide from. Don't hide. Don't hide. Stop hiding. Come into the light. Thank y'all so much for being part of the show today. I couldn't do this without you guys. We love you. Thank you to Let Go Radio. Thank you to Kelly's Choice for the opportunity. And just, this has been awesome. As I always say, as we end the show today, Brian and Tori, stay with me just a couple of minutes. If you can't be good, be bad, but be good at it. This is D to the J with a roll away, saying we will see you next week at 2 p.m. for episode 63 of My CP. Does not define me. I'm a poet and didn't even know it. So there we go, and we'll see you.
See y'all.
All right, everybody. That's going to do it for this week's episode of My CP Does Not Define Me. But don't worry, you can catch us again next Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on www.letgoradio.net and on Facebook and YouTube at My CP Does Not Define Me. Remember, I'm your host, D to the J with the roll away. And if you can't be good, be bad. But be good at it. We'll see you next week.